You know, this reminds me of a feller I knew. Little feller we called Gabby, because he was always running his mouth, wanted to talk all the time. And old Gabby had himself a good rawhide riata like I have here, and in the string he had a little paint pony. Now paints I ain't partial to. It seems to me that there's been some interbreeding there that makes most of the paints I've come across just a little bit too narrow between the eyes, as we like to say. But Gabby swore by this little pinto paint pony. He said it was the best roping pony he'd ever seen. And so we decided one day to really challenge him. We said, Gabby, we hear you talking all the time about what you can rope, what you have roped, and all the things you've done with that there little paint pony. It's time for you to put your money where your mouth is. We'll bet you $50 a man, us against just $150 from you. If you win, we'll each pay you $50. If you win, you only have to take the $50 and divide it amongst all of us. We bet you can't go out and rope a grizzly bear. Well, old Gabby stopped, but then he thought about the country we were in at the time and realized there hadn't been a grizzly bear seen there since Lewis and Clark went through. And he says, all right, I'll take that bet. Well, the boys kept their eyes open. And it wasn't but 2 or 3 weeks later that we found a grizzly bear. Must have been the last one left there in that part of the country. So we went into the bunkhouse and said to Gabby, Gabby, grab your rope and your pinto pony. We done found you a grizzly bear. Well, his face kind of drained the color, and he stammered and stuttered and a little bit, but he was as good as his word, and shaking a little bit, he grabbed his rope, and he put it onto his saddle, and he put his saddle onto that little paint pony, and he went out to where we told him that grizzly bear was, with all of us tailing along to watch the fun. Well, he found that bear out in the brush, just where we told him it would be. And sure enough, he shook himself out of loop and threw it and caught that bear right around the neck. And he starts pulling in with that pony. That paint pony was just sitting back on its hind legs, trying to keep that rope taut. But that bear didn't do nothing but turn around and grab a hold of that rope. And he pulled. And he grabbed a hold of that rope and he pulled again. And he pulled, and that little pinto pony's backing up, and that bear's just coming up the rope, and he's backing up, and the bear's coming up the rope. And we all were just watching in amazement, and we saw that grizzly bear pluck Gabby out of the saddle, toss him aside like he weren't nothing more than last week's newspaper, mount that pinto pony, and ride off into the brush. Now, we thought that might be the last we'd ever hear of that feller, that there pinto pony, but a couple weeks after that, we had a feller riding the chuck line. He was just looking to do a little bit of work for his supper, but he come up to the house, he's a-shaking, and his face is all white. We say, feller, you look like you done seen a ghost. He says, no, I seen something even more unbelievable. I swear that I saw a grizzly bear on a paint pony rope one of your all's longhorn steers and lead it back to his cave. And we just smiled at him and said, yep, you done saw right. And Gabby knew what had happened to his paint pony.